The rise isn't about rejecting faith or rejecting traditional religion. It's really about reclaiming it. We're really taking back our relationship with Source, with Creator, with God, with the universe, and learning to trust our inner knowing instead of external authority. Welcome to the Story of Spirit podcast, where practical spirituality meets real life. Hi, I'm your host, Sheetal Story. I'm a psychic medium, grief support counselor, professional astrologer, and a human design reader, and of course, a law of attraction master coach. With my unique blend of spiritual and practical tools, I am here to help you align with your soul-led purpose and ignite a life that sets your soul on fire. In this podcast, we are going to explore the principles of energy, astrology, spirituality, and psychology to help you heal your grief and create an aligned life and business from the inside out. Whether you are looking to deepen your intuition, understand your cosmic design, or transform your business, this podcast is for you. Join me each week for insightful discussions, practical tips, and inspiring stories that will guide you on your journey to living your very best life. Don't forget to subscribe and follow us on Instagram at Sheetal Story or wherever you listen to this podcast. Let's dive in and start this transformative journey together. Welcome to the Story of Spirit podcast. Today, I want to talk to you about a topic that is very near and dear to my heart, and I think it might be a little controversial, probably a lot controversial, because it's talking about spirituality versus religion. And, religion is one of the, I'm going to say, oldest business models that are out there because it works on fear. Right? Religion works on fear. And religion had to work on fear at the time that religion was created, right? And we can sort of argue that there's religion in every part of the globe. And what I love about religion is that there is this concept of God. And I was recently working with a healer for one of my kids, and the healer was like, God has been such a word that has been corrupted. And I thought that's such an interesting comment because what does God mean to everybody? I mean, how do you know it's corrupted? It has been used, it's been wielded as a weapon to keep people subjugated, to keep people in line. And that concept was created at a time where there was a lot of lawlessness. There was a lot of, horrible things happening. And they created this concept of, God, God, that we needed at that time. That concept of God had to be created at that time to create order, to create being kind to each other because people weren't kind. It was maybe savagery, but I think it was more so trying to survive some very extreme conditions. And I'm going back to BCE here, but before that, there was a semblance of a body of wisdom that was honored before organized religion came onto this planet. And there was this awareness that nature is God, that we are nature, that there is a loving, conscious energy that permeates all of us. And in spirituality, we like to call that creator, we'll call it source energy. I call it spirit with a capital S. And it's really the consciousness that flows through all living things. And I was having a conversation with my 19-year-old about religion. And he was like, well, I don't know if I necessarily believe in God. And I said, so you don't believe in an energy that permeates all living things? He's like, yeah, but it's like good and all loving and all knowing. I don't know about that. And I was like, wow, I've raised him with the concept of God with, we're Hindu by religion, by I was born into Hinduism, and then I've taught my kids about Hinduism as well. But would I say I'm a devout Hindu? No, I'm actually very spiritual. I am not religious. And I like to look at all the religions around the world and take sort of the things that are the best parts of it, if you will. And I realized as I grew up that it's spirituality. It's not religion. And so coming back to this concept of, something that's good and all knowing and controls all, I said to my son, no, that's actually again a corrupted version of God, because when we think about consciousness, it's neither good or bad. It just is. Spirituality just is. Spirituality is that we have a choice to be very loving and kind, and our true essence is love. And everything that happens to us is neither good nor bad. It's actually neutral. But how we make it, what we make it mean in our mind, then creates the outcome for that. Right. So, this is a true story. I was at a conference a few years ago, and he was a face reader, and you could go up and you could ask him for a reading and what he thought of you. And so, this woman, you have to, ask her beware, because he's going to tell you what he's going to tell you. And if you're not strong in yourself, he could trigger you. And words trigger because they have meaning that we give it, right? That's why a swear word is just a swear word. It offends you because you grew up knowing or thinking or believing that, not knowing, but I'll say believing that this word means something. And so if somebody uses that word to you, or in front of you, it has meaning because you've learned that that meaning was passed down to you, right? So this girl was told that she's spoiled. She's spoiled. Everybody caters to her, and she's spoiled. That's what he saw, and he told her that. And in the moment, I wasn't there when he said it to her, but I was there when the repercussion came back around, because he started, talking to us, and I was like, I'm going to give you a reading because I'm a psychic. I know you're a psychic, but you've got all these degrees, saying that you are who you are, but I know you're a psychic too, and I'm going to read you. And I said, if you're open, and he's like, oh my God, I'd love that. Yes, tell me. So we're in the process of giving him a reading and talking to him about his life. And all of a sudden, this girl comes up and interrupts our conversation very rudely. Like, there was obviously no space for her, but she actually came up right beside him and she said, "You hurt me." And I was like, ooh, this is projection. No one can hurt you unless you give them permission. So I was like, oh, this is projection. And there was another lady standing with us who is a psychologist, a clinical psychologist. So we're like, this is going to be interesting. And she said, "You said something to me that hurt my feelings." And he said, "Oh, I'm sorry. That was not my intention to hurt your feelings. What did I say?" And she said, "You called me a spoiled brat." I said, "No, I said that you were spoiled, that you were catered to in your life." And she said, "My mom used to call me a spoiled brat." And she said that everything that happened in her life was because of me, and everything because she had to cater to me. And I was like, "Ooh, that's interesting." I think if someone had said to me, "You're spoiled," I'd be like, "Wow, that's a cool assumption. Tell me about that, right? What does that mean for you? What does spoiled even mean?" That people catered to me. So does that mean that people loved me and wanted to do the best for me? That seems pretty cool. But that had a negative connotation for her because her mom used to use it as almost as a weapon. And she took it as a weapon, right? So she didn't see it as a very loving or kind thing. Whereas I don't have that context in my life. So I would be more curious and maybe even a little flattered if someone said that to me, where she did not. And God is that way, right? Everything, if you take the God word out of it, because I do think it has a lot of connotations, but I don't mind it. I literally use them all interchangeably. But spirit, source, creator, this energy that permeates all things is neither good nor bad. But we've created this, loving presence of God in a white man, sitting in the throne, surrounded by light, dressed in white, might be slightly bearded, might not, might have long brownish hair. I went to Catholic school growing up. That's what I saw, as the image of God and often portrayed as. And then if you're, in other cultures, God's portrayed in very different ways. Hinduism, there's many faces of God, and God takes the feminine and the masculine form, which is something I truly love, because we are all images of God. We are all images of Source. We are all aspects of Source experiencing itself. That is a notion from spirituality. And that really resonated with me, on a fundamental level. That felt like truth to me, that the trees are God, that the grass is God, that I'm God, that the cats are God. Like, we're all spirit, we're all source experiencing itself, and we're all different aspects of source. So I think religion, started out with a pure heart, and cultures around the world then, also projected into it what they needed to, in that time and space of the evolution of man. And we're coming to a time now where we're not in that lawlessness anymore. And I think religion has been so corrupted in many senses of the word. There's very many kind of subsections of different religions and stuff now, but for the most part it's a business. It needs money to run. Churches are expensive, temples are expensive, gurdwaras are expensive. Everywhere you look, mosques are expensive. There's a lot of money pumped into these structures, these places of worship. And I always think, like, look at all the money this religion built. Look at all the money that this has magnetized in. When they put their plates going around. I remember in Catholic school when I had to go to church for different things, and yeah, they would pass around the plate, the collection plate, and I was like, wow, look at all the people just put money into the plate. This is wow. This is what they do. And then there's donation boxes because it costs a lot of money to run. It's a business, right? They employ people. They have to put up the minister, the priest, or whatever who's in residence. Like there is a lot of money pumped into this. And when we think about true spirituality, money is actually considered masculine, but the flow of money is considered feminine. And money can be used for good things. Money can also be used for bad things, but money is just energy. It is not good or bad. It just is. And it enables you to do good or it enables you to do bad, right? It really amplifies who you are. Again, it's neutral. Like everything is neutral in the world. And I think over the past, many hundreds of years, we are seeing a shift from traditional religion to personal spirituality. And people are really craving a direct, authentic connection with the divine rather than being told what connection should look like, right? The rise isn't about rejecting faith or rejecting traditional religion. It's really about reclaiming it. We're really taking back our relationship with source, with creator, with God, with the universe, and learning to trust our inner knowing instead of external authority. And I think that's where I'm having a visceral reaction to this external authority telling me that I should feel shame if I have an abortion, or I feel shame if I have a divorce, or I need to ask permission to have a divorce. I have so many clients that are going through divorce right now. And one of the things, a real truth that has hit for me in witnessing all these amazing women stepping into their joy and stepping into claiming a life that is much more than a life that has evolved for them to be, is that divorce was created to liberate women. Divorce was created to liberate women. And marriage is a beautiful, loving, holy union that I fully believe in. I am in a marriage. I've been in a relationship for over 25 years. I believe so much in the union of two people coming together in love, whatever, whoever that is, whether it's a man or a man, a woman or a woman, or they or them, whatever it is. Love is love. Straight or gay, it is love. And even that, the church and religion saying this is not good or this is not allowed. Like, who gets to, why do you get to say that? You are no more an emissary of God than I am. You are no more an ambassador of spirit than I am. I'm a huge ambassador of spirit. I speak to spirit. Right? I understand that love is love. Love is so important. And it makes me so angry when I see religion twisting these rules, who created these rules about love, about unions, about what a woman should and shouldn't do with her body, or who she should and shouldn't be in a relationship with. That was all created to subjugate women, to control women. Because when you control women, you control culture, you control the family, you control the house. The woman is the home, it is the lineage, it is what culture is passed down through, is women. And so when you control women, you control the entire narrative. So religion clamped down on that big time. And I think for that reason, I am hugely, on the opposite side of that, I'm in spirituality, because spirituality celebrates the divine feminine. It celebrates women as powerful sources. And there are religions around the world that do understand how powerful women are. So I'm not trying to say that all religion thinks that. There are religions that have completely erased women in the culture, in the history of it. And I'm talking about the Catholic Church, y'all. There's Mary Magdalene and Mary and all the women who were priestesses and stuff that came before. All of those things were erased. We go back to the Gospel of Mary. Mary did have her own gospel. Where is that? Oh, that was taken out of the King James Bible. The Bible itself has been so written over and over and over again, rewritten by men and to what they wanted. Even when we look back to the King James Bible, rewrite that was rewritten so he could divorce. So it has been so used over and over and over again to further somebody else's agenda. And when we look at spirituality, there is no agenda. There are still pitfalls in spirituality too that we have to be aware of. Spirituality is not without, its own shadows. Everything in the world has its own shadow. Religion does too. And when we look to see the role of women in spirituality and the role of women in religion, they do not feel the same to me at all. Right. And everything in this episode, I'm going to ask you to really filter it through your own feeling of knowing and your own sense of being from within, not what someone told you, not what you went to Sunday school with, not what, there's a culture of, semblance. Like if you will listen to this culture, then you belong. And if you don't, you go against the grain, then you're out. And that's again control of religion, right? I have so many friends that were kicked out of their families because their religion said if you don't marry within the church, if you don't marry a man, if you divorce, if you whatever, live your own lifestyle, you cannot live here. You cannot be part of this community. That is control manipulation that leads to separation. And that's what religion does. It separates us from source. It tells you what you have to do to qualify for source. That never made sense for me. We are source. We are energy. We are God experiencing itself. How are we different from source? Why do we have to qualify to be in relationship with something we're already part of? Right? It is such a lie. And I think the biggest manipulation that we're seeing out there, and I think this is why so many people are stepping away from religion because it isn't about separation. And we know separation is a lie. You can feel it in your bones, right? You should repent and feel shame if you have an abortion. Why? Who said that? Are you not doing a service to yourself, your body, your society? If this is a choice for you, if it's not a choice for you and you want to choose other avenues, that's fantastic. You know what really should this be about is supporting the girl who is going through this or the woman who's going through this. What feels right for them? What is the best choice for them to make for their life, for their resources, for what they think they can handle? If that having a baby, great. If that's having a baby and giving it up for adoption, great. If that's having an abortion, great. But your job is not to say you should do. Your job is to support and illuminate all the choices. And even if she's young, she still gets to make a choice because this is her body, this is her future, this is her life. And we are stewards of these young people coming into the world, not people who are the dictators of them. I think that's also an evolution of parenting, which could be a whole other episode. But in terms of this spirituality and faith and women's controlling of our bodies, I think it's been so, again, used to control women. And, for centuries, organized religion has minimized women's roles, keeping them out of leadership positions, silencing their spiritual authority. Now, there are religions around the world that are now putting women in positions of power. There are lots of things around the world doing that already. And I think that's wonderful. We are finally reclaiming this acknowledgement that women play equal roles, if not, I'm going to say more important roles in the family. And this rise of faith, this rise of spirituality is actually helping us to come back into more balance in religion. So I think, religion has its place. Religion is not bad. I really want you to hear that. Religion is not bad. And there are many religions in the world. So I don't want to clump everything in as the umbrella, but there are certain religions that are very, very extreme and are mainstream, and it's interesting when I see, gospel teachings, I hear the good and then I also hear the corruption within it. And there's good and bad in everything. Again, good or bad is a subject, subjective. But listening to somebody speak, I like to sort of go, oh, that makes sense to me. That doesn't make so much sense to me. And can we then keep our mind open to hearing the rest of it versus writing the person off as like, this is not good, you know? Like I said, I went to Catholic school growing up since grade 3 to grade 12. And growing up, we'd have to go, our friends would have communion and there would be, sacraments, and we would have to go to church as a school. We had a church actually in our school, an elementary school that became a library eventually. And when you have to go up to receive the blessings, because I was not Catholic, I'd have to put my hand over my heart. So my right hand over my heart and go up. And they would bless me, but then they wouldn't give me the Eucharist. They wouldn't give me the little bread thing. I was always so interested. I'm like, how does the bread taste? Tell me. Like, what does it taste like? They're like, it tastes like paper. It tastes like nothing. I'm like, it doesn't look like nothing. It's a little disc. Like they're putting it on your tongue. How cool is that? And they're like, no, it's not cool. And I remember feeling purposely ostracized, right? And I was like, this is so interesting. I remember even as a kid going, something doesn't feel right. This doesn't feel right, right? I have to put my hand over my heart. I have to protect my heart, or I don't know, or protect the priest from my heart. I don't know what that it didn't make sense to me. Why do I have to protect myself or put my hand over my heart when I go up so I don't receive the Eucharist? So I think that was, even as a little girl, again, being separated for the rest of my peers, but then also thinking about that, like, I am not separate from God. This is just another form of God. And I asked my mom that when I went home, and she's like, no, God is there. God is everywhere. And you're still loved no matter who you are, what religion you are. God is God. And I thought that's wild, because even as a child at 7, 8 years old, I knew something wasn't right with that. We all have this inner knowing. There's so much inner knowing that is overridden by all of these layers of what my mom said, what my dad said, what my priest said, what my family does, what my grandmother and grandfather want of us. And when we actually grow up and we get to sit in those parts of us that have knowing, that have our own awareness of like, this doesn't feel right. You know what? I don't think that I should be not friends with so and so because they're not part of my religion, or they are worshiping another religion and they're a good person and they believe in love and being good and kind to everyone and doing as much as you can in this lifetime for others. Wow. Maybe, I actually want to be friends with them, even though they're Buddhist, or maybe even though they're Muslim. There's such a separation in the world right now, especially when we talk about religion, right? How much violence are Jewish people experiencing? It's awful, and we're seeing the same on the Muslim side of things. It's awful, but it's all God. We are all God's children. It's like looking at you and saying, I don't like you because you have a crooked nose. What? What are you talking about? It's just, no, you have a nose too, right? You have a life too. Everyone wants to be loved. Everyone wants to be free. Everyone wants to have their future, their desires come to fruition. They all want to belong. Everyone wants to be heard and be seen. We all have these needs. This separation is such BS. And I think from a spiritual lens, I get very frustrated because I'm like, you're just calling each other these names, but you're actually one another. You're seeing a mirror of yourself and you're hating your mirror. Like, what are we doing here? And it can be very frustrating as someone who's trying to hold the line of love. And I'm not above this too. There are still things in the news that irritate me. And they're like, well, that's me too. I'm just witnessing myself as me. This is me too. What aspect of me am I irritated with in this situation? But we have egos. And Earth is a battleground. Earth is always going to be a training space for us to step into our authenticity, to learn, to grow consciousness. That is why we're here. And I think for century, organized religion has minimized women's roles, and we're really reclaiming that. we're finding a lot of religious texts that were written by women, but then interpreted by men or left out completely. Mary Magdalene was one of the apostles, and there was many teachings in that are even still in the Bible that talk about how many of the disciples were jealous of Mary because of Jesus' experience with Mary and their closeness together. And then there's even in the Gospel of Mary and going back through scriptures and through other people's accounts that there was actually a sacred union between the two. There's also a study of Mary Magdalene being a high priestess and being initiated into a kind of a higher wisdom type of lineage where she came with her own gifts and talents. But of course, that was all minimized. We won't ever know. Is that truth? I don't know. I'm not a scholar in that area. I don't have anything that I can actually claim that I've read or that I know or these exist. I know that the Gospel of Mary exists. I know in the Gnostic Gospels, they talk a lot about things that were, left out of the Bible. So again, just to say that the Bible is an interpretation. It has been revised and reworded and reworked. There are many words within the Bible that have been misinterpreted from the original language as well. We know those things are true. Like, I'm not making that up. That is not a coloring of the facts. It is the facts. So, to take it for what it is. There's great teachings in the Bible. It is a religious text, as is the Quran, as is, anything that comes from religious leaders of olden times for religions, right? But it's an interpretation. And we really have to remember that. And the interpretation is colored by the person who interpreted it. It cannot not be, right? It is interpreted. So just keeping that in mind, right? You're listening or reading something that's been filtered. It's not the original, but many people think of it as the original. And that's where I think spirituality does not claim that. Spirituality is about your own interpretation, your own experience of things. And then this idea of separation between men, women, heaven and earth, sacred and profane, this it's a form of control and disconnecting people from intuition in the natural world. We are nature. And you can see our culture, our religions, I'm going to say even our economies, everything has been created to pillage from the earth. But I'm going to say I love the indigenous, I'm going to say culture and ways of being because they really realize that we are stewards of nature. We are here to protect nature because if we don't protect nature, then we're not protecting ourselves. Right? There's a symbiotic relationship. And if we take something from the land, then we have to give something from the land. And that has been 100% lost in Western society. And I'm going to say, even in Eastern society, there is so much industrialization and pollution around the world that we are taking more than we're giving back, which is obvious. When colonization spread, it replaced ancient matriarchal and indigenous spiritual systems with patriarchal cultures that centered around obedience instead of empowerment. Obedience. They needed obedience because there was so much lawlessness back then. So then fear was weaponized, right? Fear of sin, fear of punishment, fear of being cast out, which made it easier to control the people rather than inspire them. And so people did things out of fear versus out of love. And we are now switching. That is a huge switch in the age of Aquarius that we're stepping into in the next 150 years of coming back into this love because Aquarius is intellect, right? It's about, wait, this doesn't make sense. Why would I be cast out of heaven if God forgives all? So why would there ever be a need for hell if God forgives all the time? I don't understand. You could do heinous things and say, please forgive me, go to confession and then get all that back. Like, it doesn't make any sense to me. And when I started to ask these questions of priests when I was going to Catholic school, they got very frustrated with me because they're like, don't ask these questions. And I was like, why? This is important. If you want me to understand this, you should be able to tell me about all these things, right? I mean, why are you believing in something that you yourself can't answer questions about? It doesn't make any sense to me. I always got a satisfactory in religion. I never got an E, excellence. And I was convinced it's because I asked too many questions because they didn't like that I just be quiet and listen and just say yes. I'll never be that person. I'll never be that person. I will always ask the questions because I want to know. I want to learn. So now as we're waking up, people are remembering that spirituality is personal, embodied, and accessible. You don't need a middleman to talk to spirit. You don't need to do 100 different things. My parents like to not eat meat on Wednesdays and Fridays, very Hindu thing. And I'm like, Mom, God still loves you even when you eat meat. And she's like, it's not why I do that. And I was like, wait, why do you not eat meat on certain days? Because I like to limit these things to show God I am faithful. And I said, that doesn't make sense. So people who don't limit themselves don't love God? No. I said, okay. So I'm still trying to understand how depriving yourself of something that is actually good for you, because as a woman, you need iron big time. You should eat more red meat. And then you're not supposed to eat cows in Hinduism, which, I mean, good luck trying to get your iron intake from natural sources. I mean, a lot of spinach maybe, but then also, I mean, vegetarians get their iron in too. So it's not to say that you have to eat meat or cows specifically, beef, but there is this experience of religion and sacrifice and suffering that when I do these things, God will know I'm worthy. There's so much about flogging self in old, even now, there's still religions around the world that flog themselves. And if you don't know what flogging means, it means like whipping your back with things that have like hooks or wooden things on the backs or little tails on them that kind of like scar you and hurt you. And then inflicting pain on yourself in the name of God and purity. It makes zero sense to me. God doesn't want you to hurt yourself. The source doesn't want you to hurt yourself, because when you hurt yourself, you hurt source. This is about you realizing that you are love. You are walking in the essence of spirit every time you're a good person. Every time that you're doing something good into the world, that you're walking in your purpose, that you're being of service, that you're doing something that feels aligned in your heart. I do feel like people are born inherently good. And then things happen in our environments that change us. This waking up that you don't need a middleman to talk to spirit. You are spirit. You are spirit experiencing itself. Practices like meditation, astrology, I love human design, energy work, even spiritual practice like stepping deeper into your intuition. These tools of self-awareness and alignment are about being pure and true to yourself. Pure meaning, the word pure again has been so used to weaponize against people, but pure being like coming back into your own source of knowing. When I was going through my grief counseling certification, they tell a story which I thought was so profound. It still comes up to this day, and it came up for me to tell you now, that there's a story of, and this is actual truth, of the Buddhist monasteries and monks going back in the days, through China and India, that they had these golden statues of Buddha. And when they invading armies would come, they would steal their statues and melt them down and melt the gold down and use it in other ways. So to protect their golden statues, they would put on layers of mud to kind of make it look like it's a mud statue. And of course, being Buddhist monks, they're humble, they don't have a lot of money, so no one questioned these mud statues. And over time, as monks took vows of silence, and this information was lost over time. So these statues were there, and they're like hundreds of feet, like not hundreds, like very, very tall, very, very big. So there was a Buddhist temple that was being reconstructed, and they had to shore up its foundations, and they had to move this giant statue of Buddha. And so they had strapped it to a crane and they were moving it, and they knocked it into a wall and it cracked. And when it cracked, you could see the gold coming through. And when they looked, they realized that the statue was actually gold. And when they looked at all the other monasteries, they realized these statues were actually gold under mud. And that is the metaphor of being human. That we, as we're born in these golden, beautiful statues. We are born whole, perfect, and pure. And as life goes on, we are layering these layers of mud of who we're told to be, who we should be, fearing repercussions, fear of being ostracized from the tribe. And so we take on these personas and identities to be who people need us to be. And grief is what cracks that. Grief opens up that. Grief is one of the biggest soul evolver tools that we will all experience. No one gets out of here alive, and no one gets out of here without experiencing grief. No one. And so that crack is grief. And then it opens up the gold for us to be who we are. And I think that's why I love walking with women who are moving through grief, because it's a time of reclamation, my friends. And it is a time you don't realize it in the moment, obviously, because you're in the depths of despair and heartache and loss and all the horrible, most awful, gut-wrenching experience emotions that you can experience. And if you've experienced loss like that, you understand what I'm saying. And it changes you. It's meant to change you. But if you use your spirituality as the tool of betterment, of course, therapy is super great too. You're using these tools to support you, you can actually mine the gold and come back to your true essence. But if we allow ourselves to stay in despair or lock it away or just try to push through it or get over it, just get going in your life, as many traumatic events in history has made us believe that that is the way, and we've handed that down through generations, then that's why we continue to see trauma handed down through generations: drinking, alcoholism, this propensity for issues and illness in the body. It cannot be healed if we do not sit with the parts that created it. We have to sit with grief. We have to understand how we are process it in a way that feels good. Grief is love with no place to go. And I like to say, let's give it a place to go. Let's light a candle. Let's write a letter. Let's talk about the person. Tell me about their songs. Play one of their songs for me so I can hear who they were. Describe them to me. What's your best memory of them? How did they leave a mark on your life? These are ways that we transmute grief. But because there has been such a prevailing view of just getting over it, there's been no time to sit with grief in certain places where, people are running from famine, running from war, running from genocide. There's no time to sit and talk about grief. It's like we just need to survive. But then life happens, and then babies are born and marriages happen and death happens, and then we're on to the next thing. And if we don't make time for grief, grief will wait for us, and it'll wait generations sometimes. So spirituality, I think, really gives us a tool to sit with that. And one thing I do love about religion is it also gives us a tool to move through grief. Well, not all religions, I'm going to say, because there's some religions that are like, just give it to God, right? Just bless it away. And that is not going to help you process your trauma, your grief, the things that you've gone through. That is not, you cannot just bless it away and give it to God. You actually have to deal with it, sit with it, talk about it, speak to someone who can hold space for you. And there are many religions around the world that their priests, ministers, whatever you want to call their holy people, can sit with you and help you process it and talk to them. One thing I do love about religion is it creates communities where people come together and you feel held, you belong, you feel seen. But these communities can also be weaponized to make you do what they want you to do, or to live a certain way, and to keep up guises, personas, masks, so that you fit in. And so, we really want authentic community, authentic connections where you can be yourself. Again, there are religious places in the world that perpetuate this mask wearing. And then there are religions in the world that are like, just come as you are. Just come as you are. We love you no matter what. Intuition becomes your new compass, guiding you how to love, how to parent, how to lead, even how to build businesses. This is what I love coaching entrepreneurial women, because it's when we lead through heart, when we lead through our intuition, when we follow the energy, our alignment, we create so much success and we become so magnetic. We are doing away with the grinding and the hustling and the bro marketing. This is now about authentic connection. And when we do that, we become unstoppable. And so many, people's spiritual awakenings have been sparked by grief, loss, and life transitions. As I've mentioned, that's why I love being a grief counselor, because those moments strip away the old, the masks, the mud, and reconnect us back to what's real. And I think, what I've been noticing as well is social media and technology have really amplified this movement, allowing spiritual vision and wisdom to be shared globally in ways never before possible, which I love. Also, spiritual media has, spiritual media. Oh, I should start a new social media platform called Spiritual Media. Social media platforms have also perpetuated the rise of the influencer. And the influencer is just another idol that people worship that also creates separation. And, I'm not a big fan of that myself because, what we say in marketing is you, as an entrepreneur, as someone who's in business, who offers a service, you are the hero of the journey. And I'm here to support your journey. But an influencer is the hero of the journey. And people are looking to have that lifestyle, to have that. They covet what that person has. And they look at them again as an idol versus seeing that that is possible for them too. I think good influencers really show that you can do this too. Here's how you do that. If you're going through a spiritual awakening, grief often is the catalyst for spiritual awakening. And so if you've been through one, you'll know there's a dark night of the soul. You're really in what is true. Everything is stripped away for you, and you have to come back to your own knowing. And I've heard this from many of my clients who have left organized religion. It is actually in grief that they've left the religion because they realized that everything that was being told to them and what was, even the way to support them in their grief was to minimize how they were feeling, to get them back into status quo. And the thing with grief is there's no status quo. You blow up the status quo. There is no timeline to grief. There is no, you need to be this way. It's actually, can I just sit with you? And I'll sit with you as long as it takes. I'll come and sit with you time and time and time again, as long as it takes, because I'm here with you, whatever is your process. In those moments, I say the gold is exposed, right? You get to see who you truly are and you step into your purpose, your mission, your vision, your own vision for life shifts. And that's when friendships shift. That's when jobs shift. That's when, people decide they want to go on pilgrimages or take up a new education degree, whatever it is, they are on a new path. But you have to get through the dark night of the soul first. Of course, there's a shadow side to spirituality as well. And there's spiritual bypassing, right? People just positive it away. Just, everything is happening for a reason. I hate that term so much. Everything is happening for an opportunity. What is the opportunity? Right? It's all good. It's all perfect. It is all good. It's all perfect. But there's also time and spaces to say that to people and time and spaces not to say that to people. The other part of spirituality that is a shadow is spiritual ego. I don't have an ego. I've transcended the ego. I've transcended to 5D. No, you haven't. You have a body. You're in 3D. You are not transcending to 9D breath work, okay? You're still in a body. You're still breathing. If you're breathing, you're in 3D. Your spirit doesn't breathe. Their energy. So you can't 9D breath work if you are in a 3D body. I see all of these, even the Akashic records. I'm a little iffy on that, to be honest, because you're not meant to know if you don't know what the Akashic records are. It's a theoretical record of all of your lifetimes you've ever lived and what you had to learn, what you didn't learn, who you have soul contracts with. It's pretty much a record of your entire existence as a soul. And the Akashic records, as they're called, there are people around the world that claim that they can access the Akashic records. You're not meant to know your records because you're meant to be in this lifetime, living this contract, living this as it was perfectly designed for you to experience. And when we look back into the Akashic records, you're now giving yourself awareness in things that might influence how you live your life here. So are you actually accessing the Akashic? Or are you accessing a field that needs you to know some of these things so you can live what you're supposed to live here, right? It's very meta. But what we do know to be true is the Akashic does exist. Do people access the field of that awareness? Potentially, potentially. Again, it's going to affect your life. So was that not written into your life then? And what are you actually experiencing? Is it truth, or is it a version of truth that you need to hear to get to where you need to go? I know, a whole other rabbit hole there, my folks, but we will we're just going to leave that one for a moment and maybe go back and do a whole episode on Akashic. I'm not the expert on Akashic records. I do have friends that do work in that field. So it would be, I think it might be a really great fact finding thing to have them on when I eventually have on guests. But just for you to know that that exists. And so when people try to escape their human experience instead of integrating it, they are then bypassing. They're spiritually bypassing. You're trying to meditate 8 hours a day, you're spiritually bypassing. You're saying everything is love and light, you're spiritually bypassing because the human experience isn't about escaping it. True spirituality isn't about escaping the human experience. It's about being fully present in it and understanding what it is here to teach you as a soul. That is this spiritual experience. Ultimately, the rise of spirituality represents the rise of consciousness, a collective remembering that the divine isn't outside of us, it is actually within us. And it always has been. It's just been forgotten purposefully, I would say, in some cases, to keep us in, able to control and make more money as a business for religion as a whole. But I also feel like we're reclaiming that back. We're coming back into our own connection with our authentic self. And I would say that's why people pay me. That's why people come into my readings, my coaching, my counseling. All of that is because we're coming back into connection with our true self and we're needing a reminder of that. So I think, especially if you're getting readings from people, you have to be very careful with people who are, again, filtering through their own lens and also telling you what to do, giving you advice, because advice is now inserting themselves into your karma, into your life lesson. Karma just means life lesson, right? You are here to do that. You have your own knowledge and your own wisdom. You know what you need to do. But sometimes we forget or we're waiting for clarity. Clarity always comes. I heard that this summer. I hated it because I wanted clarity to come now. Clarity never comes on our own timeline. Clarity comes on the universe's timeline. We are all being perfectly timed. We are part of this beautiful spider web network of intersection with other people that we are going to come into contact with. It's going to affect and change our lives as we will change theirs. We will leave a imprint on this planet because you are here by divine design. You are here at divine timing, and your soul chose to be born at this time space reality for a reason, for an opportunity, for so much love. You are going to bestow on this planet something great just by being you, just by breathing, by virtually being you. And you don't have to qualify for that. You don't have to repent for that. You just are. You've always been worthy of it. So I'm wishing you, knowing that you're worthy of all your dreams and desires, knowing that you are here on purpose, and knowing that your soul chose this body, this place, because it's so wise, it's so knowing. Go live your life, go live your desires, step into your intuition deeper, step into your connection with the universe deeper. Use some of these tools: intuition, astrology, human design, taking up tarot or cards, letting your intuition come through you, and notice how life shifts for the better. Thank you for joining me on this episode of the Story of Spirit podcast. I hope you have found inspiration, support, and practical insights to help you align with your soul-led purpose and live a life that sets your soul on fire. If you have enjoyed today's episode, please subscribe to the podcast, leave a review, and share it with a friend. Your support helps us to reach more listeners and continues to provide valuable content. I sincerely appreciate every share, and I know it is how most people find me. It is because caring people like you have shared me with them at the right and perfect time. For more resources, insights, and to connect with our community, please visit us at www.sheetalstory.com and follow us on Instagram at sheetalstory. Remember, your journey to a more aligned and vibrant life is just the beginning, and I am here to support you every step of the way. Until next time, stay aligned, stay inspired, and keep shining your beautiful light. This is Sheetal Story, signing off from the Story of Spirit podcast. here's the legal ease that's required by our lawyers. This podcast and the YouTube channel represents the opinions of Sheetal Story and her guests to the show. The content should not be taken as medical, psychological, or financial advice. This series is informational and entertainment purposes only. Because each person is so unique, please consult your healthcare professional, your mental health dream team, your financial advisor, or anyone else that's an expert in the field in where you are thinking of making big choices in your life.